And we are back. So I hope everyone was able to get a lot of them done. I know there were 10 questions, and the reason for those questions was covering various topics and information throughout the manual. And I kind of wanted to give you an idea of what the manual included. So I'm going to go share my screen again. And so now it's time for the review. If you want to answer a question, just put in the chat. Just because of time constraints, I think we have 15 minutes, so we're just going to go through the answers to the questions. So what is one of the circumstances that can be used to justify the use of non-competitive proposals, which is otherwise known as sole sources for federal grant purchases? This was on page 33 to 34. So there are actually 4 circumstances for federal. So anytime you use a special request form in procurement and you want to justify a sole source for a federal grant, you have to use at least one of these to justify the non-competitive proposal. So the item is available only from a single source. The public exigency or emergency for the requirement will not permit a delay resulting from competitive solicitation. The federal awarding agency or pass-through entity expressly authorizes non-competitive proposals in response to a written request from the college or after solicitation of a number of sources, competition is determined inadequate. So a reason is not because of budget, and it's not because you waited until the day before the event. So how many people got that one correct?
Sarah, what was your answer?
I got one of the answers correct.
Yeah, you just need to choose one of them.
Oh, just one. Okay.
Oh,
I
yeah,
said single source.
Yeah. Sole source. Yeah. Single source.
Yeah. So, but this is for only federal grant awards. So the college allows others that are state, that are private foundation grants to use the college's definition of sole source. But for federal grant purchases, you have to use this. This is under the uniform guidance. So you have to use one of these for justification. You just can't just say because. You have to use one of these. Number 2, name 3 of the items of cost listed in the selective item of cost section. So this was on page 21 and 20 to 22. Now it was a lot. It was a whole table. So any 3 would be sufficient. So there's advertising, public relations, advisory council, alcoholic beverages, which we all know is a no-no, right? Alumni activities, audit services, bad debts are just some. There was a long list. And so basically we were required to have this posted somewhere. So project administrators and key personnel are able to go and find, and it was attached to a uniform guidance regulation. So that's why this section was very important. So if you have any questions on any of these types of costs, whether it's allowable or unallowable, you will go to this section and look it up. The college retains grant records a minimum of how many years after the final financial status report is submitted? Anyone have a question, answer for that?
Was it 3?
5.
Now, did Beatrice say 3?
I said 3.
So why did you say 3, Beatrice?
It was either 3 or 5.
Well, Beatrice, you are almost correct. So the requirement to retain records for federal grants is actually 3 years. However, the Department of Education has a statute of limitation, which is 5 years. So we go by the minimum of 5 years. So Beatrice, you were partially correct. It's recommended to go 5 years. Federal grants is 3, but its recommendation is 5. So we hold records a minimum of 5 years. Subrecipients are responsible for adhering to the terms of the subaward agreement. Name 2 of the data elements a subaward agreement must contain. And this was on page 54. And it was a long list. So that shows, right? That shows the type of requirement that's needed if you have subrecipients. So this is just some of them. The federal award identification, the federal award identification number, the subrecipient name, the subrecipient's DUNS number or any other unique identification number, or the federal award date. This is very important. Right now, I'm the person, and I will work with the project administrator. If we have a grant that has subrecipients, I believe we only had 2. One, of course, was the National Cyber Watch Center. They had subrecipients. And when we create a sub-agreement, we have to make sure that all of those elements that you see on page 54 is included. So I wanted to bring your attention to the subrecipient monitoring section because it's very important. If we're audited and we do not include any of this information in the sub-agreement, we can get a finding. So that's why it's very important. Who is responsible for responding to grant audit findings on an audit report? Anyone want to say? Of course, it's the project administrator. So anytime that we receive a finding for a grant project, the project administrator is responsible. Number one, they are the person that I'm sure knows the reason for the audit finding, and also they can work with their department and also with the grants office to figure out a way to resolve it, and in the future make sure that that audit finding doesn't occur. They will work also with finance because finance is the one to make sure that the audit is completed, but the project administrator with their team make sure that that response is provided to finance. Now, who is responsible for compiling timely and accurate financial reports subject to the authorized finance officials' review and approval? This was on page 14.
The grants accountant.
Of course. And that was easy, right?
Yes.
So as you saw on the key personnel sheets, Tia Ferguson and Corey Banks is our grants accountants, and they have disseminated the different grants based on, I forgot whatever they have, but it's mostly based on the agency. So Tia deals with Department of Education, Department of Labor. Corey deals with foundation grants. She also deals with NSF, National Security Agency. So they've broken up between agencies so they can ensure that the grants accountant is that basically that subject matter expert with that agency. So if any financial reporting, even if the financial report is within the project document, you want to make sure that you've spoken to your grants accountant because the financials are done and they have to submit it. And if it's included in your project report, you want to make sure that you're accurately reflecting the financials for that period. So you want to talk to your grants accountant. So correct. What are 2 of the factors needed to be considered when determining allowability? Now, of course, there was more than 2, but all we need is just 2. Anyone want to throw out 2?
I have a few answers from my team.
Okay.
Consistent treatment, be necessary and reasonable for performance of the federal award.
True, true, all true. Yes, so be necessary and reasonable, be applicable to the federal award, be consistent with the policies and procedures that apply uniformly to both federally financed and other activities of the college, conform to any limitations or exclusions set forth as cost principles in Part 200. And of course, I have continued because there's many, many more. And as Anne shared in her presentation, some of these are a little bit, this is based on opinion. So it's based on a prudent person. And oftentimes a project administrator and maybe the grants accountant or the compliance officer may not share that same prudent or, idea of, what's reasonable and necessary. So we do have a process in which if the project administrator and the grants accountant or compliance officer don't agree, and that's also in the book. or in the manual. Number 8, according to the U.S. Department of Education, when are funds determined to be obligated for travel? And that's on page 26. Does anyone want to share? Okay, well, when the travel is taken. So it's not when you purchase the tickets, it's not when you purchase your registration, it's when you actually take the travel. Now, there are some times that you can get approval by your agency, because I know there are times where a grant is about to close and it's cheaper to make the purchase at that time prior to when the actual travel is taken. I've seen that with Department of Education, but you have to get prior approval from your program officer if you want to be able to use those funds in a previous year. Then, you know, when you take the actual travel, if it crosses your program year. But with the college, we utilize that obligation for travel as when the travel is taken. So if you look at page 26, you will see a long list of different scenarios of obligation, and it will tell you when it's taken. And that's very helpful to know when you're able to spend your funds during the timeline that you're given. So number 9, for institutions of higher education and nonprofit research institutions, which is the most commonly used method for federal sponsors for utilizing the program income generated from federal grants? This was on page 29. Anyone know? The additive method. So there's 3 types of options to view program income. And program income is basically revenue that's generated from a grant. And so we have a grant now, National Cyberwatch Center, that has program income. Adult education has program income. Program income can be registration fees, conference fees. It can also be tuition, but it has to be approved by your grant agency. And so the college used the additive method. So if you look at page 29, you can read additional information on that. Last question is, name one of the items that institutional base salary does not include.
My team said extra service pay.
So on page 50, you will see it doesn't include summer pay for faculty with 9-month appointments, extra service pay, so you was correct, your team was correct, which is honorarium awards, overload payments, fringe benefit payments, and any income that an individual earned outside of duties performed by PGCC. So this was very important section because institutional base salary, you will receive a letter when you first was hired, and it basically tells you how much your salary is and what it includes. Anytime we get additional funds, we get an additional letter, and that's basically what your institutional base salary is. So when we're thinking about grants and writing them, and we know who the person is, we got to take that into consideration when thinking about how much they should get paid or how much is charged to the grant for that employee or staff, you know, to work. So it sounds like everyone did a great job. So are there any questions?
No questions, but a comment. Thank you for sharing that document. I have a lot of homework I have to do.
And if anybody want this updated version of the PowerPoint, I can send it. Of course, I didn't send it in the beginning because it had the answers to the questions on it. But I can send this, I can share this. Actually, I'm gonna share this to all the project administrators. And if anyone else want me to share this with them, I can.
In the breakout room I was in, some people were asking where to find the manual on the website.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So the actual manual, and I can share my screen. The manual is on the portal page. It's under Grants and Resource Development in the Office of Institutional Advancement. Later on, I'm working with Strategic Plan and Effectiveness to actually have this portal, manual listed on my policies. But I'm not sure when that will happen. But as of now, it is on the Office of Institution Advancement portal page. And as I stated before, anytime there's an update to the policy and procedures of the college, uniform guidance, or anything that is pertinent to, any changes to the manual, I will make those changes and I will alert those project administrators. And it will be updated on the portal. Any more questions? Okay, well, thank you, everyone. This concludes the workshop. I'm just so happy that you were able to come, and I'm very happy to see so many people that is excited, just as I am, and interested in the Federal Grants Management Manual. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you. Bye.
Great job, Kalika.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, team, we look good. We look good today.
Yes, Kalika.
Thank
you did
you.
great.
I was a little nervous in the beginning, but
You did good.
I'm trying
We
to
look
get
good.
everyone's
Back to back,
email.
we look good. We covered it all.
Yeah. So I had 30 people.
Mhm,
Yep.
Let's see how many was the project administrators.
mhm.
But does it matter? It says 30 people.
My team did good with the questions.
They sure
Yeah.
did, Dion.
Yeah, they did.
Thank you, Dion,
was
for
trying
doing
to,
that. That was a good
I was
idea.
unmute.
I was typing them in for
telling me how
them.
good you did, Kalika, but I was on mute.
Oh, that's Brenda.
Oh, thank you, Brenda. No, I saw your name come up. So I said, there's Brenda.
Yeah, somebody kept trying to put me in a breakout room, and I was like, oh, no, I'm not trying to fail the test
See,
today.
you was helping. Oh, you,
Yeah, I
you
did.
wasn't. You wasn't.
I thought I saw you come into ours, Brenda. Then I was like, where did Brenda go?
Look, y'all were working too hard in there, Diane. I had to leave.